Hello, how are we all? Thank you so much for joining. As you can see, I am in front of my bookcase this time on account of not having a location. So if you are anywhere fun and you would like me to put a location up for a future video, please do send that over. Let's do some hellos. Hello, Steve. Thank you so much for coming down. Snudpuckle is saying hello as well. I am joining you from one of the roughest weekends of recent months because my whole household went down with what could only be described as plague. The smallest one got it first. He puked on Friday, and within hours of everyone getting home, we were all down with it. And so we've all been violently unwell all weekend. I'm feeling human again now, although I do feel a little bit clammy, but better than expected. Now, as usual, friends, we have got our updates, our repatriation / decolonization news. We've got our new news. We've got some ding-dongs, and we have got some events and exhibitions as well. Articles will be listed and numbered in the description box. The numbers you're going to see on screen will relate to the numbers that you will see in the description box. I've got lots of people to thank for sending me articles. Hello, Tiki. Thank you for joining us. Jessie, thank you. Very kind of you. There was a plague on my entire house. It was very Shakespearean. There was a point in the middle of one of the nights when my husband and I looked at each other and there was fear and desperation. Laughing hurts a bit. Like I think it's all my intercostal muscles. They're just livid. They're livid with me. Hello, Clue. Thank you so much for joining. And Kiwi, morning it's morning over in New Zealand. I don't know how time zones work. What time is it? Is it early morning? Mid-morning? And what's the weather like? Steve, it's Hadrian's Wall. Oh, do you know what? I went to Hadrian's Wall when I was a young kid, and I have not been back. I think I shall have to investigate at some point. It's Dragnasty. Hello, nice to see you. Hello, Marianne Rosie, nice to have you here. Triforce of Inadequacy, that's a great username. Joining in from Massachusetts, and I'm also happy that you've made a stream. Thank you very much. Jessie points out that having kids, it is half of the course. Usually, though, you get a bit snotty. There was a point where I thought I may, in fact, have the favourite way of medieval kings dying. I was thinking to myself, is this it? I've mocked so many warmongering medieval kings. Not mocked, maybe mocked. Potentially, certainly on History After Dark for dysentery. Now I'm like, is this it? Is this karma? I'm gonna die of this. Hi, Stuart. Thank you so much for joining. Shane, hello. Thank you for joining. Yorkie Grit. Yes, I tell you what, the lurgy has, I think, departed. Please let it not come back. Let it not come back. MJ's Gardens coming in from Hamilton, Ontario. Thank you so much. Katie it's nap time and undisturbed by the children. And coincidentally, both kids are snotty nil. I hope that you don't catch it. I hope it's one that's already come through your house and won't make you unwell. And Kiwi, it's 7:32 a.m. on a Tuesday. Cold and wet, no frost this morning. My gosh. Well, thank you for joining us at this early hour on a Tuesday morning. And Sven is coming in from Eugene, Oregon. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, I do have a lot of people to thank, so I'm just going to set us up with that. I'm going to get to this point, and I think that's how I like it. There we are. So let's start. Also, let's put the comments on stage because we enjoy doing that. And the way we have them, I believe we have enjoyed having them wide. And medium? Does that look right? Tall. Wide. I think wide is how we like them. That sounds vulgar. Let's say thank you to our friends for sending me news articles. I want to say thank you to Jessie, to Shane, to Mr. Dr. Cat, who is bereft because he is at the moment putting the children to bed. So he never gets to hear about his shout out because he always, when he sends me the article, he goes, I've made it into the thank yous for History News this week. So Mr. Dr. Cat has done it. Steve, Snudpuckle, Beth, Elverta, Joseph, Sheri, Yvonne, Jenna, Scarlet, Sven, Natalie and Sarah. Thank you so much for joining and for sending in those news items. I really do appreciate the fact that you go about your days, go about your lives, and then something pops up and you go, I think I'm going to send that to Dr. Cat. There is something incredibly heartwarming to me about the fact that even though these only happen once a month, I'm considered, and people see things and go, oh, you'd like this. I think it's very kind. Thank you very much. Shane, Mr. Dr. Cat is, bless him, the busiest human. I make sure of that. I am I'm terrible, and he is wonderful. So he currently, as we said, he's putting the children to bed. He also does work full time in a demanding role, and he provides all of my sustenance and the children's sustenance. I don't cook, lack the aptitude and the inclination. So every meal is a him thing, unless it's a me thing. If you ask my eldest son what it looks like when mummy cooks, he will, as if he is holding a smartphone, and he will tap it and go, oh, mummy's cooking, because it's a delivery app. That's how mummy cooks. So that's what our life is like. So he does much of the labor. So I don't think he has time to sit down and watch the playback, but he does join in and watch once the children are in bed. He watches it live when he can. So let's hop in to our first update. Now, we talked about this being found, and now it's going on display. This is a gold object uncovered by a student archaeologist in Northern England, and it's going on display as part of a new exhibition that showcases some of this region's major and most remarkable finds. So this was found in 2025 in Redesdale in Northumberland. It's a 9th century artifact, and the student who found it within 90 minutes of beginning work on the site. They were working as part of a training dig alongside professional archaeologists and fellow students. The exhibition is going to be part of the highlights of Treasure, Hidden, Lost and Found, and that's already opened at the Great North Museum in Hancock. And the museum manager said, quote, "We are delighted to unite these incredible archaeological finds from across the north for our latest exhibitions. From Roman silver discovered along Hadrian's Wall to 9th century gold found by a Newcastle University student. This is a rare opportunity to see these scattered treasures displayed alongside one another. We can't wait for people to experience the thrill of these finds and the fascinating stories they reveal about our shared pasts." So the other standout pieces include the Tribly shield, which a bronze artifact originally unearthed in the 18th century near Chester Street. This was a shield that was split into 3 parts after its discovery so that it could be shared out amongst friends. The 18th century was wild for that. 2 of the pieces have now been reunited and are clearly part of this exhibition. If anybody gets a chance to go and see this, they've also got loans from the British Museum, National Museum of Scotland and Vindolanda to enrich the display and to offer new perspectives on the shared heritage of Northern Britain. If anyone's been to see this, do let us know. It's running until the 20th of September 2026. So you have school holidays coming up. You've got a reason now. You've got a museum to go and see if you're in the area or you want to travel up there. So let me know if you've seen it, what you think. Should I be nosy and reach out and see if I can speak to a curator, maybe go up and interview somebody? By the way, as well, for those of you who saw my video on Jack Ketch, I did have quite a few comments and requests about the history of Punch and Judy. Now, I have a friend from many moons ago, from my misspent youth as a theatre geek in Brighton, who is a person who does Punch and Judy professionally. And I have arranged to go and interview him. So we will be having a video on the history of Punch and Judy coming up. I'm interviewing him at the end of May, so probably in June. So that I think is going to be pretty exciting. Dawn Lovejoy says that she's looking forward to it. The Hancock Museum is in the city centre of Newcastle upon Tyne, so it's really easy to get there. Brilliant. Brilliant. Shane asked, any luck ever getting the opera pinball back? Alas, no. I'll try again every little bit of time, but there does become a sort of you sort of give up for a while. I'll have another go and see. Oh, and Steve says he was at Vindolanda watching them excavate the latest part of the site and saw them pull out a piece of glass last week. Exciting. That's very exciting. Ticky, no, this is not, my friend is not called Tiffany. This is not a History After Dark thing. This is he's a very, very lovely young man. Let's hop in and do another update. So we talked about the golden helmet that was stolen from a Dutch museum. We talked about it being stolen. I believe we also discussed it being found again, and now it's going on display. So this was stolen from a museum in the Netherlands last year. It's been recovered, and as we can see, it's now heavily under guard. And when it was stolen, it was on display at a small museum in January of 2025. It was the last weekend of a 6-month-long exhibition when thieves broke in and grabbed it with 3 golden wristbands. It was feared that the helmet might have been melted down for the gold. Clearly, that hasn't happened. 2 of the 3 missing armbands have also been recovered, and 3 men were arrested for the heist shortly after it occurred. The helmet is slightly dented, but there's not going to be permanent damage, we are told, and the armbands are in perfect conditions. The thieves made a homemade firework bomb, and they used a sledgehammer to break into the museum. The theft did put a strain on international relations between the Netherlands and Romania. The Romanian Justice Minister called the incident a, quote, crime against our state, and said that recovering the artifacts was an absolute priority. And this is, of course, something that needs to be considered, is when things are on loan, particularly internationally, any damage is an international incident. If you have one nation's treasures and something happens to them on your watch, it's an international incident. These loans, they are diplomacy in action, which is one of the reasons why I talk so much about the relationships that Britain's national museums have with other countries. And that does include questions of repatriation for me, because I think if a nation is being requested consistently to repatriate, and while I think that's ethically correct, I also think it's politically astute. I think it's diplomatically astute, particularly when the groundswell of the drive of your fellow Europeans and what you're looking around at, the kind of the heritage world in general, they are making those moves to stay behind, to lag behind and not do it. There is going to come a point where the pressure is going to be exerted that those loans are going to stop happening, because this is diplomacy, because it is international relations, and these kinds of collaborations are very important. Before the Brexit vote, there was talks about doing an exhibition on the history of the Quran in Europe. And I know this because I was employed to do some kind of research fact-finding on things that could go into this exhibition. And I had the extreme privilege of going to Budapest, to the National Hungarian Museum in Budapest, going behind the scenes, looking at their incredible objects which connect to the Quran, which have Quranic surahs on them. I went to Nantes, which was going to be another partner in the exhibition. And there was also going to be plans to have part of the exhibition happen in one of the London institutions. And funding for that obviously went away, because these sorts of things, they are diplomatic and they are unifying in that way. So yes, this can be a very big deal. Another update. We talked about the Cézanne that got stolen. Paintings as well by Renoir and Matisse. They were worth over $10 million. They were snatched in a 3-minute heist in Italy. However, the banker turned artist Nelson Sayers slipped a reproduction of the missing Cézanne into the lobby of MoMA on the Tuesday before this article was printed. He states, though, that it's art rather than a prank. He put a print of the French painter's cup and plate of cherries in a plastic box with a piece of tape stuck to the front reading "Lost and Found." So thieves went in to the Magnani Rocca Foundation outside Parma between March 22nd and 23rd, and they made off with 3 pieces. The museum security alarm had them running off. The heist apparently took less than 3 minutes, and they think it's the same gang that stole $100 million worth of France's crown jewels from the Louvre in Paris. And the artist responsible for placing this there said he told Page 6 that he was inspired because there are, quote, a lot of museum thefts in the news. I've been intrigued by museum thefts. He said, I'm an artist. My main art is not these guerrilla stunts, it's paintings and sculpture. My guerrilla work is a commentary on our society and not a prank. I'm not trying to get a ride out for everybody. I'm trying to have a serious conversation. He said, pulling this off proved to be a lot easier than his guerrilla stunts in the past. He tried to bring attention to human sex trafficking by printing out a fake Metropolitan Museum of Art brochure and placing them on shelves next to the museum's official literature. This time he approached the box at security and asked, can I put this here? He said that he was inexplicably cagey about the museum's responses to his work. He told this publication, quote, they've been very fair and reasonable. These institutions I respect immensely. He did this the day before April 1st, but claimed it's not an April Fool's joke. The issues I'm dealing with are very important. I mean, I think he probably is engaging in some commentary, but half of the reason why he acts in this cryptic fashion and speaks in this way is because then people report about it. If he said it was a prank, it probably wouldn't get the news coverage. Calling it guerrilla art and trying to start a conversation elevates it further. I understand why he said that. That makes total sense to me. If I was doing something similar, I would do the same, because more and more people are going to talk about what he's doing, and good for him. It gets his name out there, and perhaps his art as well. We talked about this. I said that if you wanted to win a Picasso, you could. I wonder, is there anybody who was watching the History News that applied? A Parisian man is the one who won it. He won a Pablo Picasso painting that is worth $1 million, and the raffle ticket he got it with was charged $117. When he was called, he apparently said, how do I check this is not a hoax? First thing he was going to do was tell his wife, who actually returned from work, and then he said, I'm going to take advantage of it and keep it. This is the third iteration of the one Picasso for €100. This was head of a woman, as we can see here. This offered the chance for, you can get a 1 million portrait, and the charity, it was in favour of a charity for Alzheimer's. Apparently 120,000 tickets were sold worldwide, which of course brought in €12 million or $14 million. €1 million are going to be paid to the Opera Gallery, which is the international art dealership that owned the painting. The founder of the gallery said he offered a preferential price for the painting because the public price was €1.45 million. The first raffle in 2013 saw a man from Pennsylvania win Man in the Opera Hat, which was painted in 1914. The oil on canvas still life was raffled in 2020 and won by an Italian accountant whose son had bought the ticket as a Christmas present. The charity's raffle organizer, the Alzheimer's Research Foundation, is based in one of Paris's leading public hospitals, and so it's become France's leading private financier of Alzheimer's-related medical research since its founding in 2004. The two previous Picasso raffles raised a total of more than 10 million euros for cultural work in Lebanon and water and hygiene programs in Africa. Yes, I think it's about the theft stuff happening. Apologies, I meant to hit Tiki. With the current technology and museums showing more online to showcase current exhibitions in the past, there should be more repatriation. I agree. And as I said, there are many ways to engage with repatriation and decolonization. It doesn't always necessarily require the physical transfer of objects. Sometimes it will, but what certainly needs to happen at the very least is a recognition of rightful ownership. Long-term loans can be arranged; those can be discussions. But this is, again, it's part of diplomacy, and it's part of that international dealing and trading. Stuart says both chats showing in the video, one from the portrait stream, the other from the landscape. Yes, I am aware. That is because people have asked. I think sometimes not all the chat appears in the one that sits. If you're on the desktop, not all of the chat appears if you are watching on YouTube. So people have also asked me to put the chat up on screen so they can also see it there. So that is why that looks like that. And I hope it's not too distracting. As we know, you can also access the articles if you head to the ones that are in the description box. Bev, thank you so much for the super chat. I don't have a Patreon profile in the same way that I don't have memberships. YouTube has kind of prodded me about offering channel memberships. And the reason why I don't have a Patreon or channel memberships is because honestly, I don't know what I would put on them. Principally because the ethics and ethos behind me creating this channel was that nothing was ever going to be behind a paywall. So, and for me, that includes all sorts of things like early release of episodes, preferential chats, all of that sort of stuff. I was just not interested in putting content behind a paywall, putting access behind a paywall. So that I don't really know what I could offer in a Patreon that wouldn't be breaking that ethos of putting content behind a paywall. I think with channel memberships you can get stickers, and if that's something that people are interested in, if they would like me to set up a channel membership because they want fun stickers, then I can definitely do that. If you would like me to set up channel membership so that you can support the channel monthly, that would be amazing as well. But to be clear, I will never be putting additional content, me talking to camera, essays, podcasts, whatever, private chats. I won't be doing that behind a paywall. So I would understand that people aren't particularly therefore interested in me starting a Patreon because of that. And I totally get that. That's why would you pay for something you can potentially get for free? So let us. I'm pretty sure we talked about this owl getting damaged. I remember this back in 2023. This is known as the Pillsbury owl, and it was damaged back in 2023, but it's now back on display at the Minneapolis Institute of Art. This is a 3,000-year-old bronze owl. and it's been returned to its original integrity, apparently, and they say you can barely see the damage. This is a zun or a zun, which is a ritual wine vessel that was used in ceremonies to honor the ancestors. It's Chinese in origin, coming from the Shang dynasty, and it's one of a few left in existence in the world. To pay for its repair, it was one of 16 recipients selected for a Bank of America 2025 art conservation project. This is one of the earliest known Chinese bronze sculptures in the American Museum collection. It was given to this museum in 1950 by the Pillsbury family. I'm assuming the Pillsbury family is the anyone I know is like Pillsbury Dough, the Pillsbury Doughboy, I'm guessing. So apparently when it was absent, the visitors stopped to ask them when it would be back on display, and now it is finally back on display, and it's absolutely wonderful, and I'm very pleased that it's been able to be restored. How great is that? Those are our updates. We're now going to hop into our repatriation news. The stone birds of Zimbabwe were taken by colonists. They are now back home. The flag of Zimbabwe, its banknote, and its coat of arms all feature an eagle sitting on a plinth. This is known as the Zimbabwe bird. It's connected to national identity, and it's one of several ancient treasured sculptures that was taken from Zimbabwe by colonists. After 137 years, it has now come back. It is a soapstone carving. I'll be honest, I don't know what soapstone is, but I've heard it used a lot. I don't know why it's called soapstone. I should probably have looked that up. So this is a soapstone carving, and it was repatriated from the neighbouring South Africa. It was there having been ripped from its column and then sold to, guess who? The British imperialist Cecil Rhodes. South Africa repatriated the bird along with 8 sets of human remains that were previously exhumed in Zimbabwe by colonial researchers and then donated to a South African museum. The article points out that these body parts were taken in the late 19th and early 20th century for, quote, a misguided colonial pseudoscience. So this week's homecoming comes at a time when former colonial powers are yielding campaigns to send looted African remains and artifacts back to their home countries. We've talked about this already. The vast majority of these returns have come from European countries like France, the Netherlands, Germany, and the UK. So there are UK institutions that are doing this. However, arguably one of the largest storehouses, one of the ones that's consistently approached for repatriation, is refusing to do so. The sculptures were taken from the ruins of Great Zimbabwe, which was a medieval stone city. It was built in between the 11th and 15th centuries. And the bird sculptures, of which 8 are known, were planted on walls and on monoliths. Experts believe that the statues depict something called a bateleur eagle, or which is known as a champungo in Shona. Others believe the bird is a hungwi, which is an African fish eagle. They have spiritual meaning for some people in Zimbabwe. The 8 birds were believed to have watched over Great Zimbabwe for hundreds of years, but in the 19th century, European hunters, traders, and missionaries began exploring the region prior to colonization. When a hunter named Willie Posselt found the birds in 1889, he decided to take the best specimen. This is the sculpture that then returns to Zimbabwe on Tuesday. Oh, people are explaining to me what soapstone is. Thank you. It's the texture that it gets. That's why it calls. It has the texture of soap, and it's easy to carve like soap. Sven has asked, in the US, channels make money from the ads. Watching the whole ad page channel more, does it help if you watch the entire ad? I have no idea. I have no clue. I probably should know this stuff. I don't know how any of it works. I mean, I am monetized for ads. So I assume whatever, if that is the case in the US, I would assume it's the case for me too. I don't know though. Jessie saw a video from years ago of a man who carved soapstone into smoking pipes. Sven says the Vikings used soapstone. That's cool. Okay. So soapstone is right. Thank you very much for the additional context. So after years of negotiations, Zimbabwe's authority appeared to have faith in South Africa's pledge, and for them, the lost bird has flown home for good. So what they did was they got round a quandary about because there is a 1910 law named the Rhodes Will Act that stated that the possession should not be sold, let, or transferred. This is apparently the same thing that British National Museums are also dealing with. It's a similar law about not divesting of property without reason. So this has been the legal quandary is signing a deal to loan the bird to Zimbabwe for 2 years. It's insisted, though, that it will never return to South Africa and that they are undertaking a review of the 1910 Act in order to allow for permanent repatriation. So this is also interesting because it is a potential workaround and maybe a guiding light that we might be able to follow as to how you can get around a law that prevents your national museums from repatriating when they should. We could potentially follow this South African model. So anyway, this is a loan that's apparently going to become a permanent repatriation. We hope. We will keep our eyes peeled and checking out what happens with this, as it is there on a loan and not a full repatriation. So thousands of artifacts are going to be returned to the Umatilla Indian Reservation. These are beaded bags and pouches alongside thousands of other historic items that are going to be repatriated. This agreement happened on March 31st. The Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation signed an agreement to acquire Fred L. Mitchell's collection of tribal artwork and artifacts. He owned, quote, the finest collection of 20th century Columbia River Plateau beadwork in existence. And he is a retired firefighter and a former mayor of Walla Walla. He began collecting artifacts when he was 5, and his collection included cradle boards, gauntlets, horse trappings, corn husk bags, huckleberry baskets, photographs, and tools. I've got to say, on social media, when I see people using cradle boards, I'm like, they're so beautiful. They're so beautiful. There are 1,500 ancient stone and metal items as part of this agreement, 800 beaded bags and pouches, 1,250 photographs, 70 pairs of beaded gauntlets, 50 beaded dresses, and 15 cradle boards. They will be displayed in Pendleton, which is they'll be displayed on the Umatilla Indian Reservation. This collection will dramatically expand the museum's collection. And a ceremonial blanket was draped over Mitchell's shoulders at the signing ceremony. Quote, we're so grateful that every time Fred saw something that was exquisite, that was the finest of its kind, he kept it for us. And that's lovely that he has kept it safe. He's been taking care of these goods, they say, many of them for more than 7 decades, and we're so proud of that. And what beautiful items. And I'm glad they're going home. So the night they are. I mean, it's a shame we didn't get to see everything. I mean, obviously they can't put all of the items up, but I mean, just this beaded horse rider vest. It's just incredible. What a thing! What a collection to and as Snudpuckle says, what a lot of work to put together that beading. Many hours of work. You're right, Scarlet. Absolutely. Those are our repatriations. We are going to hop into the new news, where we discover that apparently dice might be 6,000 years older than previously believed. It's suggested that dice may have appeared more than 12,000 years ago. Made by Native Americans, these Pleistocene era pieces predate all other archaeological findings of dice, most of which come from the Bronze Age. This is 6,000 years before that. Dice are a representation of a recognition of randomness. They are unpredictability. Quote, at the end of the last ice age, these are not the people we think are going to be diving into complex intellectual concepts, but they seem to be doing exactly that. So there is a historic record of Native American dice dating back 2,000 years. But then they start finding these early pieces and they didn't know what they were. There's a 1907 book called Games of the North American Indians, which outlined diagnostic attributes for 293 sets of Native American dice from across North America. In the analysis, he classified 600 pieces from 57 archaeological sites across the American West, in Colorado, Wyoming, New Mexico. And from that, he believes that they were used as dice. So rather than there being six-sided versions, the prehistoric dice are two-sided, binary lots, used for social and cultural exchange from tribes that might be strangers to each other. The games were, he says, quote, a neutral space. Everybody understood they had an equal chance of success. They're made of wood or bone, have one marked side and one side left empty. They are unusually decorative compared to other artifacts found at similar sites. And this, for him, suggests that these early concepts of chance invoked an artistic impulse. Quote, probability, chance, randomness, these aren't just ideas. They're real features of the physical world. And through these games, the dice bring randomness out into the open. They clean it up and they make it so you can see the patterns. I think it's very interesting that there's what he's calling a two-sided dice, or a two-sided form of dice. To me, it's a coin toss. And so I think it's interesting. Is it not a coin toss because the thing they're using doesn't have a monetary function? Is that why it's a dice rather than a coin toss? What makes a dice a dice? It had never crossed my mind that a dice could be two-sided. Maybe that shows my own biases. It had never crossed my mind that a dice could be two-sided. Venomous Care Bear says you can't have a coin toss at the concept of coins. I mean, yes, quite. Yeah. But then equally, they didn't think they had the concept of dice that long ago either. Steve points out items like this have multiple uses. It's the same mechanism with a game of okay. I've learned about the game of I think do you know what? I think I've forgotten whatever I knew about the game of I probably need to learn how to play it at some point. So yes, this is really interesting. And now I want to go off on a sort of wormhole about what makes a dice a dice. Snudpuckle, it would have been hard for them to make a 16-sided dice. Yes, I don't think any. Correct me if I'm going to show my ignorance here. 16-sided dice is for tabletop role play games. Correct? Orcs? Maybe? Maybe? We have the idol of Pomos, a 5,000-year-old fertility figurine that can be seen wearing a miniature version of herself on a necklace. I hope you can see that on the screen. In the early 1930s, an archaeologist excavating in the village of Pomos on the northern coast of Cyprus came across a cross-shaped figurine carved from a local greenish stone that's now known as the idol of Pomos. It is one of the best preserved examples of a copper age figurine from Cyprus, and it's now become a symbol of the country. It's 6 inches or 15.3 centimeters tall, and it's carved from picrolite, which is a soft green metamorphic rock. These chalcolithic cruciform figurines from Cyprus share a few characteristics. The bodies and arms are in a cross shape. The figure's knees are depicted slightly drawn up or bent. Many of the figurines have small breasts. Some have another figure carved horizontally in the figure's arms. So this is why they think they may have been birth charms or fertility deities. This idol is unusual because it's got a face and it's got eyes, a nose, and a cap-like covering with ears, unlike other examples that are faceless. This statuette does not have protruding breasts. However, it is thought to represent a female figure. And this one obviously also wears a miniature version of herself around her neck, suggesting that these small idols may have been worn as jewellery 5,000 years ago. It's thought that as it has this abnormally long neck, the idea would have been to suspend it or hang it on a wall, but they aren't sure. Today it's on display at the Cyprus Museum in Nicosia, and it's also been featured on the country's 1 and 2 euro coins since Cyprus adopted the euro in 2008. Now, I got sent this one many, many times. I don't understand why. Archaeologists have unearthed a papyrus fragment from the Iliad that was tucked inside the wrappings of a 1,600-year-old Egyptian mummy. It comes from Homer's epic poems, and it's got the catalogue of ships and the famous listing of the Greek forces that sailed to Troy. And it's said to be the first Greek literary text found in the context of mummification. So it was found in a 1,600-year-old tomb with several mummies inside, some decorated with gold leaf or geometric patterns. This was tucked beneath the wrappings of the mummy's abdomen during the embalming process. It is a Greek text, and it's a literary text, and apparently this is truly a novel thing. They are proposing various hypotheses as to what it might be doing there and why. The passage comes from a famous section of the Iliad known as the Catalogue of Ships. It's in book 2 of the more than 2,700-year-old text. The narrator calls on the Muses, asking them to name the leaders of the Greek forces that sailed to the city of Troy. Quote, "For you are goddesses, and you are in all places, so you see all things." And then the rest of the passage is a lengthy list of the warriors. A man named Guinness arrived with, quote, 220 ships from Cyphus. And Topolamus, son of Hercules, a man both brave and of great stature, brought 9 ships from Rhodes, and so on and so forth. This artifact was found in late 2025. And they believe that it was deliberately incorporated into the mummification process. In antiquity, Egyptian culture was heavily influenced by Greek and Roman traditions. When Egypt came under the rule of Alexander the Great in 332 BCE, Greek was the primary language. It was used in government documents. Egypt then became a Roman province in 30 BCE after Roman Emperor Octavian defeated Mark Antony and Cleopatra. So the discovery of a copy of the Iliad in an Egyptian city is certainly not unusual. Texts like this were circulating all across Egypt. They were used in education, and copies were even owned by private citizens. This is, so also you can see there the picture. That's one of the tongues that these tongues were found in mummies nearby. They found golden and copper tongues, and these tongues were sometimes incorporated into mummification so that the deceased could speak to the god Osiris in the afterlife. The Iliad fragment, as we said, is the first discovery of its time. The text was in poor condition, unsurprising, it was used in mummification, but it's been studied carefully in a lab using non-invasive techniques. And there are many other papyri that are still undergoing restoration. So there may be some other literary texts that do get found during this period. Interesting. If we get updates on this, I will of course let you know. They were digging a drainage ditch when they came across a 1,300-year-old gold treasure. This is Thailand. They found 33 ancient gold, silver, and bronze treasures beneath a reclining Buddha statue. The Phi Mai National Museum is preserving the finds, including ornate jewellery, ritual artifacts, and they're going to do this for further study and for conservation. So, drainage digging crews in Thailand found this trove of golden treasures under a famous reclining Buddha statue. They were digging 4 feet beneath this sandstone statue, and they ran into a ceramic container, and inside were these 33 ancient ornaments. There were also gold rings, silver earrings, and a special pair of bronze hoop earrings, of which similar things have been found across the country. They continued digging, and they made 3 additional finds, including hammered metal sheets covered in intricate artistry. On one of these discoveries, it was a rectangular sheet of gold about 3 inches by 5 inches, which depicted a seated Buddha in the pose of a teacher. The figure has spiral curls, a large halo, elongated earlobes, and a robe over one of his shoulders. It has a small hole in the top right-hand corner, meaning that the artwork was likely hung with a string, or that it could have been worn or used as decoration. There's another sheet like this that's got a representation of the Buddha, this time standing in an art frame. The third piece had stacked metal sheets crammed inside packed clay with cement between the metal. There was damage, though, so it's unclear exactly how many layers of metal were included. And it's also hard to determine what was depicted on the metal, but they point out the location engraved behind Buddha's reclining head lead the experts to believe the artwork was some sort of ritual offering purposely placed in the spot where it was found. These finds are now being conserved and catalogued by the museum. How cool is that? A bronze shield found in a peat bog has been returned to Scotland for the first time in 230 years. This was found in North Ayrshire in about 1779, and it was presented to the Society of Antiquaries in London in 1791, and that's where it has remained. But now it's been loaned to the National Museum of Scotland for the first time as part of their exhibition entitled Scotland's First Warriors, which is due to open this summer. It's going to join 5 other shields from the time period in the exhibition, and it's said to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see all them together. The Bronze Age in Scotland spans a 1,400-year period from around 2,200 BCE to about 800 BCE. This shield measures about 60 by 70 centimeters, and it's decorated with hammered bosses and ribs. It's got spear damage or damage from other weaponry, which points to it being used in some form of battle. It was found buried upright in peat alongside 6 others, but the whereabouts of those other ones are unclear. The thought is that there must have been potentially a warrior burial in a bog, some kind of ceremonial burial, although they can only speculate about what that ceremony might have been like, what the meaning behind it would have been. Is this a community giving up the defensive objects? Is it some kind of peace deal? They aren't sure, but it's fascinating nonetheless. The shields that they are putting on display, they do look very similar. So there is a suggestion that they may have been made by the same craftsperson or in the same workshop. At this time, wooden and leather shields were most common. These are rare, these bronze one. So they're not only used for defense, they also represent and symbolize the status of the warriors that they belong to. Jamie is Mr. Dr. Cat has put the children to sleep, and he has come in hot with the puns about the shield in the bog. He has said they're always getting bogged down by ceremonial stuff. Yaka yaka yaka. Well done. The Edinburgh exhibition is going to explore thousands of years of history from the late Stone Age to the coming of the Romans. The shields, there are 4 shields. They're going to be on display alongside internationally significant archaeological discoveries, such as the Carnasti Hoard, which has got a rare spearhead decorated with gold, a bronze sword and a wooden scabbard, and it's going to open on the 27th of June this year, and it's due to run until May 2027. This shield, it's the first time in over 235 years that the shield's been back in Scotland, and it's a great opportunity to see alongside so many other Scottish Bronze Age artifacts. Very, very exciting. But yeah, I mean, Beth, he's coming in hot with the anthropology / archaeology jokes. My husband, Mr. Dr. Cat, his degree, he is an anthropologist by training. So, piss landing, practicing his dad jokes. He was doing that. We were together for a long time before he became a dad. He's always done the dad jokes. When we were first together, I used to be very surprised that he seemed to only know one joke. It was a knock-knock joke. The joke went, knock-knock, who's there? Interrupting cow. Moo. And he told me that I had to limit him to telling me that joke once a day. Because he wanted to tell it me multiple times a day. So yes, he's been a fan of a dad joke. He's been a dad in training with the dad jokes. Shane, Jamie can bring out his own line of Christmas crackers. He could. They are excellent cracker jokes. He does love cracker jokes as well. He loves them. So yeah, whenever I hear a good dad joke, I'm like, oh, he's gonna love that. So I like to take it home to him. I'll be honest with you, I went full magpie when I saw this. An Anglo-Saxon Woden ring is going to go on display. Will you just look at it? That'll do. That will do. A metal detectorist, Dean Young, found this ornate gold ring with a connection to the Saxon god Woden. He said he had a funny feeling this is going in a museum. Well, correct. And the Epping Forest District Museum in Waltham Abbey, Essex, is about to put it on display, probably lost by a Saxon warlord, they think. It is incredible. Look at the band on it. They've described it as it's going to be the jewel in the museum's crown. It is just The workmanship is just incredible. Woden is the Saxon equivalent of the Norse god Odin, a one-eyed war god who was accompanied by his 2 raven companions, Hugin, thought, and Munin, memory. And for those of you who know anything about the ravens at the Tower of London, there were ravens called Hugin and Munin now at one time. The Anglo-Saxon and Essex were initially pagans, although this did begin to change in the late 6th and 7th centuries, because Essex was increasingly being influenced by the Kingdom of Kent, which converted to Christianity in around about 597 AD. So this is a symbol of the local paganism that was in Essex. A reminder that we are, by nature, a pagan country. I'm trying to work out what the stones are in it. So I think we've got garnet, and it's got a garnet and what they're calling a quartz cloison. So I'm assuming there would have once been the triangles would have been garnets, and then you've got the quartz in the middle. And it must be like the squishiness of it. This must be pretty high gold quantity. It's just incredible, I think. So it's supposed to look like a bird in flight. So you've got the triangular wings, the triangular tail, and the sort of diamondy triangle that would have been a head. And I'm assuming that would also have been a garnet, but that garnet has now been lost. Incredible. I mean, you'd be happy with that for Christmas, wouldn't you? So I'm going to move on, because otherwise I'm just going to sit here looking at it like a magpie. So this is a time team discovery, and there are human remains connected to this, and there are going to be human remains shown on the channel, time team channel, not my channel. In the email that was sent to me about this, there was a kind of question about the showing of human remains on the time team channel. Now, look, I want to make it clear that I think that I think that these ethical questions are very much in flux, and the conversation is by no means closed. I am not an archaeologist. If I were to display human remains on my channel, if I were to show pictures of human remains on my channel, first of all, it would not be something that it would never be something that I'd excavated. It would not be something that I am studying and offering additional context and understanding for. So for me, that is where the ethics sit, as me not displaying human remains, because then I'll be profiting from it in a way that, because I make money from the channel. I potentially think it's different if the point of the show, if you are an archaeologist, if what you are showing is an archaeological dig, I think the ethics work differently, and that may sound hypocritical, but also I want to be very clear that my ethics on this will be constantly evolving, and they are in flux as I try and figure out what I think about it. Also, I recognize that this is an exhumation of a burial. However, when people are doing archaeology and they don't know a burial is there, it's not quite the same as going into consecrated ground when you know a grave is there and fiddling about for the curiosity of it. It's quite different if you come across a burial on an archaeological dig that you are doing. So I do think it operates differently. This is also very interesting. This is a DNA breakthrough. We've got an Anglo-Saxon brother and sister. It's a double burial, and it's featured in the recent Time Team special titled Return to the Princely Burial, The Sword in the Stones. So they had a DNA analysis carried out by the Francis Crick Institute, and they've confirmed it's a young boy and a teenage girl, were brother and sister, and it's thought that they both died at the same time from a fast-acting infectious disease of undetermined origin. The grave was first excavated by a team which included the osteoarchaeologist Jacqueline McKinley during Time Team's revisit to Cherrington. It stood out because of the unusual way this pair had been laid to rest. The small boy is holding a sword while the girl is facing towards him as if watching over him. It's as if mimicking a scenario that would have been played out in life. They point out that double burials are relatively unusual in Anglo-Saxon cemeteries, so this why they thought there was going to be a familial link between the bodies. Dr. Helen Geek, who is the Time Team archaeologist and Anglo-Saxon specialist, suggested that these results fundamentally change how archaeologists can interpret double burials. Quote, our stories were told on not being able to know, and now that we can know, in at least some cases, it opens up a whole new vista. Immediately your thoughts go to the wider family and what an awful tragedy this must have been to lose two children at the same time so that the funeral was one event. Absolutely. It then raises questions about wider family relationships and households in Anglo-Saxon England. So further research on Anglo-Saxon cemeteries is suggesting that burial practices vary considerably within communities, even sites that are a few miles apart. So they were alerted to the site in Gloucestershire in 2016 after a chance discovery an Anglo-Saxon sword by a local metal detectorist. And then subsequent archaeological excavations by Operation Nightingale revealed the sword came from the grave of a young boy who was aged around 8 or 9, who'd been buried in the 6th century as a warrior, buried with a full-size sword, 2 spears, rare glassware, and a shield. This is what was dubbed the princely burial and was, I think, understandably considered to be of national importance. In July 2024, Time Team and the MOD's veteran initiative Operation Nightingale, supported by Cotswold Archaeology, discovered the cemetery extended further into the field. Then they discovered a second sword at the very last minute, which is what led to the team's return in 2024. The excavation of the second sword was overseen by the conservator, the late Pieter Greaves of Draken heritage, led to the discovery that it was buried with another small boy who was around 7 or 8 and his sister. This is therefore 2 child warrior burials in close proximity, and it is remarkable. And if you want to learn more, you can find and click on the links in the description box and look at the video they've got on the sword in the stone. Venomous Care Bear asks, what is the cutoff between archaeology and grave robbing? I think that very much depends upon what one does with what you find. I think, first of all, archaeology, I think, I mean, I'm potentially speaking out of turn, but for a start, grave robbing involves taking things for personal or small group profit. It is the theft of artifacts for sale and for profit, whereas archaeology can also be the theft of things from out of a grave, but there is a science behind it. I think also there is ethical constraints that one observes. I'm not sure if there's a time, because of course one could do archaeology, and people do archaeology, for example, of the trenches. They do archaeology related to World War II. So there's not. These are potentially people who have died within, particularly in the case of World War II, they could be people who have died within the living memory of individuals, events that happen within living memory. It's still archaeology. It's the ethics that go behind it. It's what's done with the finds. It's how they're treated. And it's what happens to human remains afterwards. And also artifacts afterwards, where they end up. If they end up on the open market or the covert market for profit, that's grave robbing. It would be my understanding. Bev points out, I think one of the things expressed on Time Team, you have to be answering some kind of question, not just digging it up for abject curiosity. Yeah, curiosity. I agree with that. It's one of the reasons why I'm always so uncomfortable about the notion that they might exhume the remains said to be the Prince in the Tower from burial in Westminster Abbey. I'm uncomfortable with that for a number of reasons. Principally, they are in consecrated ground, having had a burial that would, broadly speaking, have chimed with the religious beliefs of their time. I also don't know what questions it's actually going to answer, except for they either are or are not the Prince in the Tower. We won't know. I don't think we're going to find out from that. It will be possible to find out when they died or how they died. So the questions that people want to answer, I don't think will come across. I think it would just be about abject curiosity. Coco Creates says the difference between archaeology and a grave robber is intent. Yeah, I agree with that too. The title of this made me pause. A huge hidden cave under a castle with prehistoric hippo bones is a once-in-a-lifetime find. You can say that again. It's a once-in-a-lifetime title, I'll be honest with you. So this is 11th century castle in Pembrokeshire. The cave is beneath that. There have been digs under a cave under Pembroke Castle that's known as Wogan Cavern. They have found extremely rare evidence of early humans and animals, including the bones of a hippopotamus that roamed Wales 120,000 years ago. As Beth points out, I couldn't have guessed how that title was going to progress. You know, when I saw that title, I immediately thought about Have I Got News for You? Well, they put up a title, but they blank out a couple of the words. And I thought to myself, how would anyone get that? Like, imagine if someone just blanked out hippo bones. Huge hidden cave under castle with prehistoric blank blank, once in a lifetime find. Who would ever put hippo bones? Unless you'd seen the article, who would ever think the blank blank was hippo bones? But yet it is. I also learned from this there were hippos in Wales 120,000 years ago. Who would have thunk? Better scared there. The title is giving Florida Man energy, and that is another game I enjoy playing. Your Birthday as Florida Man is a great time. As they point out, this is like no other site in Britain. It's a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Yeah. So this cavern is thought to have been dug out by the Victorians, and it can be accessed via a spiral staircase from the castle. And it was long assumed that there was little archaeological material left at the site. But there have been excavations in 2021 and 2024 that have uncovered evidence of both human and animals over 100,000 years, including stone tools, a mammoth, a hippo, and woolly rhinoceros bones. Did I know such thing as woolly rhinoceros existed? Not before I read that article for the first time. Didn't heard of woolly mammoth. Didn't know about woolly rhinoceros. That's a thing too. They are described as being well preserved. And so what you're seeing, the picture that you're seeing in the middle image, beneath the guy in the helmet with the light, that is a molar from a woolly rhino. It's a big boy. So they've got extremely rare evidence for Homo sapien and even hints at earlier human occupation. They think the cave might be able to chart a long sequence of human activity, from hunter-gatherers living there immediately after the last ice age, back to Britain's earliest Homo sapiens, and maybe even earlier traces like those left by the Neanderthals. The hippo bones probably dates the last interglacial period, and so it could also tell us about how climate and environment changes affected the people living there for 100,000 years or more. Just wild. I think there's going to be more exploration of these items going on. It's supported by the Pembroke Castle Trust. The finds at Wogan Cavern are going to be curated and kept in Pembroke. Pembroke Castle is also the birthplace of Henry Tudor and thus a very popular tourist attraction. New excavations are scheduled to begin at the end of May. Just read in the comments. Snudpuckle, were they pygmy hippos? I can't see a size. I can't see a size. But nevertheless, hippos in Wales. I enjoy that. I enjoy that a lot. Shakespeare's missing home has been mapped. I got sent this one a lot. Mr. Dr. Cat has just asked, can you imagine that game of Hungry, Hungry Hippos? Hungry, Hungry Prehistoric Hippos. They found William Shakespeare's only London property. It's been pinpointed to a Blackfriars Street after an unknown floor plan was discovered. So this is Lucy Monroe, Professor Lucy Monroe, who is the Shakespeare expert at King's College London. Identified the location and size of the property that he bought in 1613. It is thought that he retired from his theatre career not long after he bought the house and then returned to Stratford-upon-Avon. However, this discovery indicates that he's potentially spent more time in London than previously believed. It also means the blue plaque for Shakespeare on St Andrew's Hill is not near the site of his London house, but on the spot it used to exist. Shakespeare's Blackfriars property is thought to have been part of the Great Gate over the entrance to Blackfriars Precinct, which was a major 13th century Dominican friary. Monroe uncovered 3 documents, 2 from the London Archives and 1 from the National Archives, that provided more information. These finds helped to complete the story of Shakespeare's Blackfriars house. Now they know exactly where it stood. The plan of the Blackfriars Precinct was drawn up in 1668, which is 2 years after the Great Fire, and it confirmed the precise location and the size of Shakespeare's Blackfriars house. The house is, of course, close to the Blackfriars Theatre, which is the indoor space of Shakespeare's company. They have the Globe, open air, and they have the Blackfriars. They had a lot of trouble after the purchase of the Blackfriars. They had a lot of trouble at first being able to use it because the city authorities, because of where the Blackfriars is, they got involved and they were like, no, you can't stage plays there. So for a while, they rented it out to boy companies. And one thing, this is my nerd coming out, one thing that's interesting about Shakespeare's company, unlike quite a lot of other playing companies, is they don't share. Shakespeare doesn't share food. No, Shakespeare doesn't share his space. So, for example, they've got this exterior open air space of the Globe. Now, while there appears to be that other places would allow other companies to use their space, but they didn't have a play, they might allow bear baiting, cockfighting, etc. in the space. They might even rent out the space for people to sleep in if they needed. There's no evidence that Shakespeare's company does that. They seem to be very proprietorial about what happens in their space and about what is staged there. And even when they get their Blackfriars, they don't, if they're not using the Globe, they're not letting other people use it. So it's quite interesting that they're sort of forced to let the boy companies have it because they aren't allowed to stage it until the boy companies end up getting far too near to the knuckle, and then they get a bit of a slapdown. And then Blackfriars is used by Shakespeare's company. So this property covered what is now the eastern end of Ireland Yard, the bottom of Bergen Street, and parts of the late 19th century buildings at 5 Bergen Street and 5 St Andrew's Hill. So if you know what that means... Oh, something's just fallen over in my hallway. Interesting. So if you know what that means in terms of the geography, congratulations. I don't. Snudpuckle has asked something. Didn't William Shakespeare sue somebody for a shilling? I don't. That's not something I've heard. But possible. I haven't heard that one. If you've got a source of that, or if you know who he sued, let me know. A Hamlet connected thing. So this is a Hamlet era mourning jewel from a celebrated painting has been rediscovered after 400 years. This is a pendant that appears in a 1635 painting of Thomas Ashton at the deathbed of his wife. This is a Hamlet era mourning jewel that had been immortalised in one of Britain's most enigmatic 17th century family portraits. It is, as we can see, a heart-shaped pendant depicted in St. Thomas Aston at the deathbed of his wife. This is a life-size mourning masterpiece that was painted predominantly in black and white by the Cheshire artist John Souch, that's in the Manchester Art Gallery currently. His wife had died in childbirth much earlier and is depicted after her death lying beside the wicker cradle of her dead baby. Her bereaved husband, dressed in black, is standing with their sole surviving child, who is Thomas, and he is pointing to an inscription that reads, "Grief is immeasurable." The pendant is being worn, and it was made to commemorate the loss of Robert, who in 1634, who was just 6, and its tassel is made from the lost child's own hair. Julesy, Hamlet era, the author was grasping for moviegoers. Yes, I think that's entirely true. Is there I haven't seen the film. Is there a mourning jewel like this in Hamlet in the film or the book? I haven't read it either. No one imagined that this long-lost memento mori jewel actually survived. The pendant had remained with the Aston family until it was sold in 1862. The present owners acquired it 30 years ago, long after its history had been forgotten. A chance visit to an exhibition featuring this painting, they spotted their jewel and realised its significance. And apparently, quote, "It's in wonderful condition. It spent much of the last 400 years being unrecognised." So recovering the jewel now unlocks some of the questions about this painting. So the connection that they're putting to Hamlet is that they are connecting it to the loss of Hamlet by William Shakespeare and his wife in 1596. Quote, "We're all familiar now with the story of Hamlet. This is a few years later and it's very touching. Although it's quite a small object, it packs a lot of emotion to it." This is the wearing of this jewel. This is a person in mourning for a wife and a son, but it's a person also in mourning for another son as well. The pendant's been valued at £650,000, as it is incredibly rare. There's a great deal of interest in the jewellery. It's loaded with feeling. It's not a jewel to display wealth or status. It's highly personal. It's going to be unveiled to the public at the Treasure House Fair at the Royal Hospital, Chelsea. That's going to be running from the 24th to the 30th of June. Apparently, it wasn't a single shilling. Snudpuckle says it was 35 shillings. Hey, if you owe him 35 shillings, pay him 35 shillings. So also Mr. Dr. Cat has pointed out Shakespeare's house was just around the corner from the Rising Sun and a couple of streets southwest of St. Paul's. Okay. Good. That makes more sense to me. Archaeologists have discovered a wreck of a Danish warship that was sunk by Admiral Horatio Lord Nelson 225 years ago. Look at what they found as well. A metal insignia recovered from the wreck of the Dannebrog, which was sunk in the Battle of Copenhagen in 1801. The marine archaeologists are now working in thick sediment and almost zero visibility, 15 meters or 49 feet beneath the waves. They are in a race against time because where this wreck is about to become a construction site for a new housing district being built off the Danish coast. Denmark's Viking Ship Museum is leading these underwater excavations. And there's a great deal has been written about the battle by very enthusiastic spectators, but they don't know what it was like to be on board the ship. Hopefully they will, the more they study. In the Battle of Copenhagen, Nelson and the British fleet attacked and defeated Denmark's navy as it blockaded their harbour. Thousands were killed and wounded during the hours-long naval clash. It's one of Nelson's great battles. At the centre of the fighting was a Danish flagship, the Dannebrog. It's a 48-metre or 157-foot ship, and it was Nelson's main target. Cannon were loosed on it. It tore through the upper deck before incendiary shells sparked a fire on board. Apparently, this is the battle that inspired the phrase, quote, to turn a blind eye. After deciding to ignore a superior signal, Nelson, who lost the sight in his right eye, is supposed to have remarked, quote, I have only one eye. I have a right to be blind sometimes. That's horrendous, but also funny. That's horrendous. So far, they have found 2 cannon, uniforms, insignia, shoes, bottles, and even part of a sailor's lower jaw, perhaps belonging to one of the 19 unaccounted for crew members who probably lost their lives that day. Construction work for Lintenholm, a mega project to build a new housing district in the middle of Copenhagen harbour, is thought to be complete, which is going to be completed by 2070. So, marine archaeologists have been surveying the area late last year. They say the size of the wooden parts found match the old drawings. Dendrochronological dating has tied the wreck to the year the ship was built. And the darkened dig site is also full of cannonballs, which of course makes it hazardous for divers because they're trying to navigate water that's been darkened by clouds of silt stirred up from the seabed. So sometimes they can't see anything, and they're just going to have to feel their way using their fingers because they can't use their eyes. So we'll see where that's going to go. As Steve points out, there's going to be a new island to the north of Copenhagen, and that's how they found the large cog that you reported on a few months ago. Steve points out the comment isn't entirely true. Dr. Alex Clark says the signal was a way of the admiral in charge allowing Nelson to retire without any appearance of cowardice. Oh, that's a shame. Often with those things when you hear about like what a saying comes from, you're like, oh, that's brilliant, and then you actually look into it and you're like, it's not really true, is it though? Not really true. If only. This is an odd one. Another odd title. A Vincent van Gogh painting found wrapped in an IKEA bag and a blood-stained pillow. Cool. Totally normal. That isn't nightmare fuel at all. Now it's been restored to its former glory. This is the parsonage garden at Noonan in Spring. When Arch Detective Arthur Brand answered the phone, the man on the line said he was in possession of a missing Vincent van Gogh painting. He said he wanted to return it and remain anonymous. And so he dropped off a bright blue IKEA bag at Brand's home. Inside the painting, worth millions, was covered in bubble wrap, tucked inside a blood-stained pillow, the result of a cut on the man's hand. Sir, if you want to remain anonymous, as a little tip, don't spurt your DNA all over the thing that has the thing you're giving back. Like, that is, I mean, I am by no means a criminal mastermind, but don't literally squirt your DNA everywhere. That sounds vulgar. We are. Officials at the Groningen Museum in the Netherlands, which owned the painting, were, of course, overjoyed. But they did notice that the painting had suffered damage in its time away, and so they set about repairing it. Months of careful work, it's now restored and back on display. None the worse for the bleeding hand all over it. It was stolen in March 2020 when it was on view in a temporary exhibition in Amsterdam. A masked man used a sledgehammer to break 2 layers of protected glass and leave the museum with the artwork. A man identified only as Nils M. was sentenced to 8 years in prison for stealing artworks in 2022 in 2 separate museum heists. By that time, he was no longer in possession of the paintings, which were likely circulating on the black market. Kogo Creates asked, did he also leave his address on the IKEA receipt? Almost certainly. He bled on the pillowcase, left his home address on the IKEA receipt, and probably for good measure just licked the IKEA bag a bit, and then asked, when he went around to the guy's house, went, let's have a selfie. Like, what are you doing? Like, the survival instincts of a chaffinch. What are you doing? Thank you very much for the super sticker. That's very kind of you, Carriage. She 5540. Thank you very much. Julesy points out, you notice that YouTube AI content always uses the phrase, and here's the thing nobody told us. Whenever I find something that I'm very suspicious of everything now. And if I think something is AI, I'm like, I click off immediately. So I've not noticed that. So the arts detective whose house this bloody pillowcase IKEA job turned up to has helped to find more than 150 stolen artworks and artifacts. Dali work, Pablo Picasso's work. He is known as, quote, the Indiana Jones of the art world, which is super cool. Super cool. So in 2023, when he found himself holding the parsonage garden, he knew he'd followed the right lead. So after it's all been fixed up, it's back on public display, and it looks just like it did when Van Gogh painted it nearly 150 years ago. A digital screen shows photos from before and after restoration, which allows budding art sleuths to see whether they can make out the changes. Because that theft, that IKEA bag, that bloodied pillowcase is now part of that artwork story. Even the damage to it, I'm glad it's been restored, but you have to record the damage and be able to show the damage because it's now part of its story, which I think is really, really interesting as well. This is shiny. Such a magpie. Britain's most beautiful coin has been sold for £110,000. This is Una and the Lion £5 coin. I was unaware we had £5 coins. Unaware. Apparently we did. Part of a private collection found during a probate valuation at a house near Bangor in Gwynedd. This was a gold coin never in general circulation. There were fewer than 300 produced in 1839 to commemorate the start of Queen Victoria's reign. Oh, Mr. Dr. Cat has just put a great comment about the bloody pillowcase. It must have been nice to finally catch a red-handed criminal. Well done. Well done, sir. The reason I married you. So in this coin, the Queen, Victoria, is depicted as a fictional character from a 16th century poem leading a lion. The record sale price for an Una and the Lion coin is £340,000. It was designed by William Wynne, who is the Royal Mint's chief engraver for much of the 19th century, and it's regarded as his crowning achievement. It's beautiful. It's the first time a British monarch was depicted as a fictional character on a coin. Lady Una comes from Edmund Spenser's 1590 poem, The Fairy Queen, representing truth and purity. The Fairy Queen, Edmund Spenser's Fairy Queen, is, of course, an homage to Elizabeth, that other great female ruler. So playing on those two things, I think, is very interesting. These are scarce coins. They rarely come to auction, so there's going to be a lot of interest around the world. The coin is described as having, quote, a good cameo appearance with, quote, light hairlines and handling scuffs throughout. It's pretty cool. You can sort of see the scuffs. But yes, pretty cool. Another delightfully shiny thing. This is a gown designed for Queen Alexandra's coronation. It's set to go on display in Edinburgh as part of an exhibition exploring the glamour of the Edwardian era. This is laced with hundreds of gold spangles, which allows the Queen Consort to radiate during the first coronation to be lit by electric lighting. In articles from the time, she was described as, quote, appearing in an extraordinary blaze of golden light during the event at Westminster Abbey. Alexandra served as Queen Consort until 1910, when her husband Edward died as a result of multiple heart attacks. She was known for her opulent taste, trend-setting fashion, and ritzy lifestyle alongside Edward after their marriage in 1863. Conservators from the Royal Collection spent more than 100 hours preparing and restoring the gown before it was put on display. How incredible. And also what I love is that neckline, while the sort of physical silhouette is very Edwardian, there is to me a hint of, maybe it's just me, there is to me a hint of the Elizabethan. I don't know if you can see it, at the neckline, at the collar, there is almost that kind of raised ruff, or the whisks that Elizabeth used to wear. There is a sense of it that feels reminiscent of that to me. It was designed by a female-led Parisian fashion house called Maureen Bloissier. It also included a mauve velvet mantle. Amazing. The dress has potentially darkened over time. I think it was perhaps lighter. Edward and Alexandra were also one of the most widely travelled royal couples of the time. The exhibition is going to feature artifacts from their royal households by designers including Fabergé, Wedgwood, and Tiffany and Co. Steve, looks like a trip to Edinburgh for you. The train stop off in Newcastle, see the items excavated. Oh, maybe. Oh, maybe. I mean, I have taken the train to Edinburgh. It was many years ago now, but I used to do the Fringe. I did the Fringe. I was at the Fringe as a visitor in 2003. And then I was there 2004, everyone until the last one I did was 2007, maybe 2008. So I have done the train to Edinburgh many, many times. When I first the second time I did the train to Edinburgh, this shows you how quickly, in many ways, the world has changed. I mean, it feels quickly to me. I'm old. How quickly the world has changed. When that first year I went to Edinburgh, it's when the smoking bans were coming in, and so the train we were on, this 2005, they had a smoking carriage. They still had a smoking carriage, and I know that because on the way home, I was frankly obnoxiously hungover. I still drank at that point, and I also still smoked at that point. And I spent virtually the entire journey in sunglasses, mainlining orange juice, and just viciously smoking roll-ups. Prison rollies all the way home. Terrible. So yes, it may bring back some horrendous memories for me, but that would be great. Newcastle, Edinburgh. History. No hangover this time. The Mexican art world is protesting over a plan to send Frida Kahlo masterpieces to Spain. An open letter has been signed by cultural figures asking the government for clarity on how long the collection is going to remain abroad. So it's not just Frida Kahlo, it's also works by Diego Rivera, are set to be exported to Spain under an agreement with Santander Bank. Apparently 400 Mexican cultural professionals have signed an open letter calling on the Mexican government to offer greater clarity as to what the deal means for the masterpieces. Quote, it's a very serious issue. She is the most important artist in the history of our country, and it's easier to see her work outside of Mexico than in Mexico itself. This row is centering on a collection of 160 works from the Gelman collection, which has been rebranded as the Gelman Santander collection. I wonder who has put a bunch of money in. It was originally owned by collectors Jacques and Natasha Gelman, and they were then bought by the Mexican Zambrano family in 2023. Under the deal, the collection, currently on public display in Mexico for the first time in nearly 20 years, will return to Spain this summer, where it will become a cornerstone of the bank's new cultural centre, the Faro Santander. In announcing the agreement in January, Santander said it would be, quote, responsible for the conservation, research and exhibition of the collection. But the ambiguity of the announcement, which did not say how long the works would remain in Spain, has sparked concern, understandably so. There is fear the deal may mean that the works might never return to Mexico. They say the law is unambiguous when it comes to these national treasures. Quote, current legislation is very protective of these works, specifically those designated as national artistic monuments. It deems them to be of significant value to Mexican identity and the history of Mexican art. Kahlo's works received artistic monument status in 1984, and a presidential decree clearly states that her oeuvre may leave Mexico only temporarily, and that the country's National Institute of Fine Arts and Literature is responsible for repatriating any works held in private collections overseas. The concern is that this deal that the Santander deal has done just the opposite of what the decree is supposed to have done. Mexico's president has said that their desire is for the collection to remain in Mexico. The collection is Mexican. It wasn't sold. It's only leaving temporarily. And the president said the artworks will return to Mexico in 2028. Santander issued a statement emphasizing the deal, quote, does not imply under any circumstances either the acquisition of the collection or its permanent removal from Mexico. And the works will return to Mexico at the end of a temporary export period. Define it. The contract between the two institutions states that although the export is temporary, Faro Santander will have charge over the collection at any point between June 2026 and the 30th of September 2030. a term that may be extended by mutual agreement through the extension of the present contract. That sounds more like a potentially indefinite loan. I understand why they're concerned. Quote, if the works were not to return, a fundamental part of this artist's body of work and our history would be lost. She is, after all, the most important female Mexican artist in history. These pieces are fundamental to telling her story, and they are fundamental to understanding our identity as Mexicans. This seems... So the Ministry of Culture is saying the artworks are going to return to Mexico in 2028, but the loan permits them to be there until 2030, potentially, and that term might be extended by mutual agreement. I wonder, the addition of the Santander name and now the move to Spain for a period of time, I wonder if extensive conservation work needs to take place. And maybe the funding is with Santander and this is paying the piper. And then calling the tune. That's the best case scenario. Otherwise, this seems the fluffy... The fluffy nature of this timeline, I understand why this open letter's been signed. I would sign it if I was a Mexican artist. Friends, in LA, the Getty Center is going to close for a year-long transformation aimed at enhancing the visitor experience ahead of the 28 Summer Games. So this is going to close to the public March 15th, 2027, scheduled to reopen 2028. The upgrades are going to include revitalized galleries and visitor experiences, whatever that means. Great news as well. Improved accessibility, a renovated welcome hall, and other cosmetic changes across the campus. The estimated cost of renovation is not released. T-Dust, this is on the Frida Kahlo and collection, and also Diego Rivera collection, which all seem to be going, shouldn't Mexico have a decision on who performs any conservation? Theoretically, yes. I'm assuming, but the question is who in Mexico? Because it seems like the culture minister is in some way looped in, even though they're singing from different hymn sheets. So if the culture minister's saying it'll be back in 2028, don't worry. I don't know. But yes. They're going to improve the energy efficiency and sustainability commitments. So it's going to be, there's going to be some great environmental changes. They're going to replace aircon units. They're going to improve signage, new restrooms. The centre first opened in 1997, and it typically draws more than 1 million visitors each year from around the world. This, however, will not impact the Getty Villa, which will remain open. There is a suggestion, T-Dust points out, can they make the Getty fireproof? I mean, if you're doing all the work, do your best. Do your best, right? So yes, Getty Villa will be open and unchanged. This is an odd one. Stolen historic documents surfaced in an attic. Again, back of your bathroom door, above your kitchen sink, in your attic. It's thought that a thief working at the Dutch National Archives took these documents in 2015, and then someone found them in storage and contacted, you guessed it, art detective Arthur Brand. Ding, ding, ding. So, included in these documents were 16th century records of clandestine government affairs, a 15th century letter from a knight, and documents from the Dutch East India Company. Officials weren't even aware the documents had been stolen until they were returned by the Amsterdam police and the art detective Arthur Brand, who, as we've already talked about, is known for recovering lost and stolen artworks and artifacts. He was sent some pictures and he realised immediately it was a treasure. So officials at the archives knew the documents were missing, but they just assumed they'd been misplaced. Because, as with so many of these large archives and museums, they are managing what you see on the surface, what you see in the galleries, what you see on the shelves, pales into insignificance with what is going on in the warren of shelves underground. As they point out, they manage more than 90 miles of archives, 15 million photographs, 300,000 maps and drawings. They say it's impossible to have an inventory of all documents. I mean, it's not. It's difficult, not impossible. It's possible. It's also potentially very difficult, even with an inventory, to then keep track of things. So apparently this box's contents, quote, offer fascinating insight into events in Europe, India, Indonesia, South Africa, and Latin America. Includes accounts of naval wars, negotiations in imperial courts, distant voyages to barely explored regions, and tales of knights. It also contained a report of the Dutch East India Company 1700 voyage to meet with the Mughal emperor in India. There's a book recording secret meetings conducted by Dutch officials between 1592 and 1604, and a 13-foot letter written by a knight in 1445. Brand says, quote, in my career, I've been able to return fantastic stolen arts, from Picasso to a Van Gogh. We talked about that. And yet this is one of the highlights of my career. It's thought that a former employee of the archive stole the documents in 2015. And then this individual borrowed money from a friend and used the trove of documents as collateral. The friend stored the documents in their attic, but the debtor died before retrieving them. And so there, the investigation stops. Steve points out, I'm sure that naval historians are interested in the ship's log. I don't doubt it. I'm sure that when people learned about this, there are suddenly a lot of people with very long noses going, little nosy in there. I want to have a little nosy in there. I'm sure there are scholars, from doctoral candidates all the way up to professors, who are like, I'm going to Pinocchio my way in there and just nose around. Next up, this is a very long article, so I haven't shared the whole thing, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I think it's really worth reading. It's I have never been in the American academic system. I'm not in a place to comment on how things work. I know it's very, very different in the UK. Ideas of things like tenure, the way in which people get into university, the way in which university places the funding, collegiate sports, like it's just an incredibly different system from student level all the way up through to scholars and researchers. So I can't really comment from a place of expertise on what it's like. So I'm not going to try. But this article, I think, is really interesting and worth reading and checking out. The title is Why Are Harvard Slavery Researchers Quitting or Being Fired? And it starts off, hooks you right in. Christopher Newman remembers seeing campus police officers as he walked into a human resources office at Harvard University, but he didn't imagine they were there for him. It was July 2024, and Newman had just turned in the results of a 2-month-long internship with the Harvard University Archives. An annotated bibliography for the landmark 2020 Harvard and the Legacy of Slavery Initiative report, which detailed the university's ties to slavery across 3 centuries. He completed his project on Friday, 26th of July, and on Monday, he said he received an email that HR wanted to meet with him. After that meeting, the officers escorted Newman out of the building, told him he was banned from campus, and denied his request to collect his belongings from his office. He told this to the Guardian. He said he was told that a flight back home was booked for that afternoon. Quote, "I was asking too many questions," Newman said, veering off the proverbial beaten path. Newman knew he'd ruffled some feathers during his internship. At an event at a local history museum, he had met members of the Lloyd family, descendants of people enslaved by a Harvard benefactor and trafficked from Antigua to Cambridge, Massachusetts, and struck up an acquaintance. Over the course of several meetings with library staff and other interns, after meeting the Lloyds, Newman said he brought up the island of Antigua multiple times. Quote, "There is an absolute direct connection from Antigua and what was going on there to the slave trade at Harvard," he told the group. Quote, "We really should start looking into this Antigua thing because there's some teeth here." But he was met with radio silence. Quote, "It seemed like nobody was really trying to hear that," he said. In its 2022 report, the university had broadly delineated its historical ties to the Caribbean islands of Barbados, Antigua, and Barbuda, Haiti, Cuba, and Jamaica, among others, mainly by tracing the actions of key alumni who were merchants and planters. What Newman was suggesting, though, was the university look to the present and consider its current day responsibilities to nations such as Antigua and Barbuda. T-Dust points out the fact that Antigua only asked for special scholarships for Antiguan students to attend Harvard and support for the University of the West Indies, and Harvard wouldn't even do those small symbolic gestures, says this is not about the anti-DEI backlash. It's about preserving endowment forever above all else. This is I feel for Newman. If this is deeply concerning, and the article is, as I said, is long, but it raises some deeply concerning thoughts and processes about how research is being conducted and what is permissible. And it's weird to say that. What is permissible? And there's more, different, but equally disturbing to me. The Victorian Albert Museum has apparently censored catalogues following demands from the Chinese printers. They have deleted maps and images that were deemed sensitive by Beijing censors. So the Chinese firm that publishes the catalogues have demanded that the V&A remove images that fall foul of the country's censorship laws. And seemingly the V&A has agreed. The other institutions do use these printers. The British Museum, the Tate, the British Library, they use Chinese printing companies because the catalogues can be printed at half the cost of British and European companies. But if they do this, they have to accede to the censorship requests relating to any topics or images that are deemed sensitive by the Chinese government, such as Buddhism, Taiwan, Tibet, Tiananmen Square, and pro-democracy activities. The disclosures from the V&A lay bare the detailed scope of China's censorship on museum publishers. They show just how Beijing's red pen extends to historical maps and photographs on seemingly unrelated subjects such as Fabergé eggs and Black British music. They also show how willing a publicly funded UK institution is to agree to Chinese suppression despite the problems it can cause in the production process. For the catalogue for Music is Black exhibition, which opens this Friday, the V&A wants to use a 1930s illustration of the trade routes of the British Empire. They got an email from the Chinese printers, CNC Offset Printing, saying, quote, "There is a map on page 10 relates to China. There is China border here, and we need to use a standard map from the Chinese government. And Gap rejected it. Our suggestion is to delete this map or use another image. The V&A agreed, despite bafflement at the decision. An internal email between V&A colleagues said, quote, "It's a historic map showing British colonial rule, so nothing to do with China. Just shows China on the map and seems to be enough to warrant rejection. Printing pause while we amend files. Sorry." The V&A also agreed to put another map it wanted to use for catalogue on a 2021 exhibition, Fabergé Romance Revolution. It also removed a photograph of Lenin from the book because Chinese printers said Lenin could be deemed sensitive by Gap. The V&A said that the changes demanded by China on these catalogues were minor. Quote, "We carefully consider on a case-by-case basis where we print all of our books. We sometimes print in China, but maintain close editorial oversight. We were comfortable making minor edits as they did not affect the narrative, and we would obviously pull production if we felt any requested change was problematic." The British Museum refused to respond to questions about how it dealt with any China censorship requests on at least 8 recent publications that it had printed in China. A spokesperson said, quote, "We work with a range of printers across Europe and Asia. Print orders are placed with suppliers based on a number of factors, including quality, availability of materials, schedules, and costs." They added, quote, "We won't be commenting further on the matter." Sorry, aren't you a publicly funded institution? And surely, if someone puts in a freedom of information request, you don't get to choose not to do that. Who do you think you are? The museum is chaired by George Osborne, who was the chancellor and championing close economic links with Beijing. The British Library claimed it never had an issue with censorship on the catalogues it had printed in China. A Tate spokesperson confirmed Chinese printers had published several of its children's books and some catalogues, but added, quote, "Tate Publishing has never changed the content of any books at the request of a printer." A UK publisher asked not to be named said, quote, "We have tried to print in this country, but it's just very expensive. We had a quote from a Welsh printer that was double what we're paying in China. There's always a delay in the print process while it goes through a body in China that checks things, checks up things. There are sensitivities that map. I don't think it mentions Tibet, for example." A former employee of CNC Offset Printing said, "Of course, printing content disapproved by the Chinese government is forbidden. Why should it be surprising? It's a Chinese government. It's a Chinese government." I'm deeply disconcerted by this. And I'm deeply disconcerted by the fact that the British Museum refused to comment further as to whether or not they'd edited things. Because that points to, or if they hadn't, they just go, we've never been asked to edit anything, or we've never agreed to edit anything. So to me, if you refuse to comment further, it means you have. How much? How much have you edited? Jessie asked, did they say what was censored? I didn't catch that if they did. So the maps have been taken out. And replaced. There's been replacement illustrations. They haven't changed the maps. They've taken them out to swap them for something else. And they didn't want to have a photograph of Lenin. So those are the new news pieces. Now it's time to move on to the ding dongs. And we're going to start with something that made me giggle. So let's be mature for a second, shall we? Let's jump on him. An ancient Roman bone penis has been discovered in a forgotten museum box. What I love is the top image has had the head of the penis, shall we say, pixelated, but directly below it, it's unpixelated. So the archaeologists in the Netherlands, this is the article says this, recently discovered a sizable conversation starter. I know what you're doing there, in a forgotten storage box. This is a 7.8-inch long penis carved from bone, dating back to 1,800 to 2,000 years, all the way back to ancient Rome. Things like this, penis phallus sculptures frequently decorated homes, used above entrances to guard against the evil eye, and sometimes they even adorned jewellery. This, though, might be the first of its kind. They do know a phallus is carved from stone and wood, but this is the first one carved from bone. I just can't make boner jokes. I'm a grown-up, but I can't do it. It's going to make me... While unclear what kind of bone the sculpture is made from, it almost certainly came from an animal like a cow or a goat. The sculpture spent decades inside one of around 1,600 open storage containers, alongside other rare uncatalogued relics that have been collected across multiple excavations. The items are offering historians an unprecedented look at life in the province of Gelderland, which was named after a legendary death battle of a dragon during Roman occupation. Jessie, why is the base curved? Do you know what? I'm not in the dildo business. Could not tell you. could not tell you. Gabby says, "Is this what being a grown up is about? Could it have been a horse?" I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've seen some horse wheelers in my time, and that's a little small. I think it's definitely I think it's definitely human. A replica of a human. I don't know. Jessie says maybe it's the origin of the term boner. Maybe. It is now. They point out that only a fraction of these boxes have been catalogued. There'll undoubtedly be more surprises in store for archaeologists at the museum. And it's apparently, they say, a good chance more phalluses are waiting for them. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. They point out the Romans had no shame around genitals. Fair enough. Great. I just... Ding dong, everyone. So that's a literal ding dong. And now we're going to move on to some people being ding dongs. Oh, I'm going to share that. This is, you know what? This is very. I was going to say very close to the bone, but I feel. James Byers' music, proof that not all Roman soldiers had helmets. Well, what a thing. What a thing to have your eyeballs look upon. Good. Excellent. So, people being ding dongs now. Let's do this. Our last ding dong. Museum staff are devastated. Sorry. Does anybody remember? Was it SNL? It was. Justin Timberlake was involved. And there was a box. Does anybody remember the song? Because this is how they weren't. I'm going to say this. Miss Dr. Cat has just texted me with a question. Historic cock in the box. Girl. Spectacular work. Spectacular work. So hundreds of historical objects have been pinched from one of Bristol's most important museum collection. It was broken into. 600 pieces stolen, unique, irreplaceable, and very significant in terms of their cultural value. Someone has been arrested on suspicion of handling stolen goods, and there are CCTV images coming out of 4 other people police want to speak to. Thieves targeted a climate-controlled storage site in the early hours of the 25th of September 2025. Military memorabilia, jewellery, natural history pieces, and carved ivory, bronze and silver figurines were all stolen. There was an attempted break-in a week earlier. This is the Empire and Commonwealth collection that was housed at the site. It includes more than 10,000 objects from across the world. They've been collected over 150 years or more. It's a quite specific part of British history, so they're irreplaceable. And they come from different parts across the globe. Things that have been taken, so you can sort of scroll through an opium pipe, a brass bust from Benin. Walker confirmed that security at the site has since been strengthened. Avon and Somerset Police say the investigation is ongoing. One was wearing a distinctive orange and black jacket. And do you know what? That reminds... This image reminds me... I don't think we've talked about this before. But now they've mentioned the orange and black jacket, another wearing a green hoodie, walking with a limp. Wasn't there... Have we talked about this before? Because that coat, I'm sure, was in an image of somebody also wanted in connection with either vandalism or a theft. It was a very similar coat. There is a concern that people might have bought items inadvertently. They appeal to people to come forward. And they've spoken with potential witnesses. They made an arrest of a man on suspicion of handling stolen goods who is currently on bail, and they have carried out forensic inquiries. Yeah, exactly. This article dates the 20th of April, but the theft happened back in September 2025. So I'm wondering, was this... Did we talk about the theft, a theft happening in 2025? We didn't know what the collection was. Or is somebody with the same coat involved in 2? So the former head of the Met Police's Art and Antiquities Unit said that his initial impression was the thieves had not gone in with very particular objects in mind. Mr. Dr. Katz points out groups of youths, at a museum, stealing from a museum about the same time as a Louvre heist. Why is this all happening at the same time? They thought maybe they seized the opportunity of being in the vicinity to look for things that appear to have value rather than necessarily do have value. It's caused the museum problems, of course. The museum didn't make details of the theft public until December 2025, 3 months after the break-in, so they could conduct a full audit of the losses. So maybe we talked about it in December, because that jacket, it's not the same photo, and they're in a different order, because in the photo I saw, that orange and black jacket person was like a couple of people over. Maybe this is the same thing. So the stolen items have been listed with the art loss register, and the police have now put forward a list of detailing 100 items stolen. Jewellery, ornaments, geological samples, tourist souvenirs from places like Sudan, Ghana, Singapore, and Pakistan. Most items were donated as gifts to the museum, and it has strong provenance records. None of the stolen pieces are subject to repatriation claims. They said there's no contested items from this particular collection. The government did say that although this museum does hold human remains, that is not what was stolen. It's an odd collection to steal, and it probably won't go for a lot of money. There have been, so we have had the high-profile thefts from the Louvre, the British Museum, all of which is raising questions and concerns about the scale of heritage crime. Pocket watches were stolen from the Royal Albert Memorial Museum and Art Gallery in Exeter. Bronze Age gold jewellery was taken from St Vega's Museum in Cardiff. Four of the 50 museums funded by the Department of Culture, Media and Sport reported thefts from 2021 to 2025. Research by the National Lottery Heritage Fund in October 2025 found that just under 6% of 105 heritage sites responding to a question about crime had suffered theft. But a 2024 study by Ecclesiastical Insurance of 500 heritage sites found that 92% had noted crime incidents in the previous 12 months, ranging from antisocial behaviour to theft. Avon and Somerset Police said there was no evidence to link this Bristol theft to other areas, but they remained open-minded. I am going to be honest with you. Behaviour in heritage institutions since lockdown is wild. It's wild. And it's as somebody who worked in heritage before the pandemic and has come back afterwards, the visitor behaviour is completely different. The liberties people take, it's like people haven't been housebroken. It's like they haven't had their home training. And I'm not kids are bad. There are some really unruly kids who definitely need more parenting than they're getting. But to some extent, that was something that we used to see in museums and heritage sites, particularly during holidays. You know, parents take their kids there to be entertained. They sometimes switch off the part of their brain that says this probably shouldn't be happening, but it's got worse. However, the adult behaviour, both goading the children to go further, escalating the behaviour, and also behaving really poorly themselves, it's just wild. People touching things, people reaching over ropes, stepping over ropes, just things that I don't think certainly to the extent you didn't need to see it before. It is just wild. Brian said, all ages, all genders. Yes, although I mean, I think so, yes. However, I have experienced personally, so I am therefore biased. I have experienced dads in particular goading their preteen and early teen sons. I've witnessed and experienced that preteen and early teen sons to behave in truly deplorable, dangerous, and arguably fairly threatening ways. I've experienced that on more than one occasion while in costume. And I've seen it happen to people. So yeah. Coco's pointed out that I did share this in the December live, and he was on the left in the article. So they used a different picture, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, is this the same? Have I cracked the case?" No, it's the same. he crossed across the group. Good. Tiki said, "I was going to see it. I see it in adults. They've lost common sense, and they do it for socials." Yeah, I mean, the things that I've seen people film themselves doing on social media at heritage sites across the world, I'm like, I am baffled that that's happened. Yeah, I thought we might start seeing some normalcy returning, but if anything, I'm concerned this might be the new normal. But then on the other hand, you've got people. It's so strange because it's by no means is it everybody. By no means, because at the same time, you see people who are doing what they would have done in 2019. They are looking with their eyes, not with their hands. They aren't running up and trying to put their hands in the purses of historical interpreters. That's not a euphemism, by the way. But the thing is, there was always wild stuff before then. Before the pandemic, I had a member of the but long before the pandemic, I had a member of the public tell me that it was unsafe to be a Tudor lady. And then he put his hand up, he put his finger out, he touched my throat, and he went, "And you've got such a pretty neck." And the miracle of miracles is that I didn't immediately throat punch him. And the person that I was working with was praised me highly for not immediately punching him in his throat. So that was wild. And years before that, there's always been a thing about people touching bottoms, grabbing cod pieces, seeing if people's boobs are real. That's happened. On one occasion, a friend of mine was in fact in costume while she herself as a person was pregnant, and a member of the public assumed that it was part of the costume and tried to prove it with her pregnancy belly. It wasn't a fake belly, it was her actual pregnancy. So that's the thing. Maybe I am it's happening slightly more. Maybe I'm just becoming more aware of it. Maybe it's always happened. Maybe I'm more attuned and sensitive to it because I feel it's more unacceptable because I've been affected by COVID. I don't know. Yeah. So I suppose it has always happened. I have for you one event / exhibition. And it's this one. In Paris. This is opening on the 6th of May and it's going until the 30th of August. And it's an exhibition of Hilmer of Klint work. And this is a fairly rare exhibition. So Klint trained at the Royal Academy of Fine Arts in Stockholm. And as we said, and this article points out, led a kind of double artistic life. Conventional with traditional figurative works, and secretly and decidedly avant-garde production. She chose not to reveal her abstract work to her contemporaries, stipulating in her will the painting remained sealed for 20 years after her death. This contributed to the late recognition of her work. Indeed, it was not until 1986, during the Spiritual in Art Abstract Painting 1890 to 1985 exhibition in LA that her abstract paintings were shown to the public for the first time, which marked the beginning of her international acclaim. Until now, no monographic exhibition of the artist has been held in France, even after her work has undergone significant re-evaluation. So this is a retrospective tribute highlighting the multiple sources of inspiration for her work: esotericism, folklore, and folk art and scientific culture. And this is a unique opportunity to discover an artist who, while deeply rooted in her time, seemed to converse with the future. James says, yes, touching of the codpiece is a very strange and unacceptable thing, so I stopped wearing mine while shopping in Tesco's. I mean, as long as you've got some means of closing your fly up, because what some of the lads I used to work with would do is if anybody grabbed or touched their codpiece, they would insinuate loudly and theatrically that they were in it. So, because the thing is that a person does that to you, a person touches you in that way because they intend to embarrass you. So I think it's totally acceptable to embarrass them back. So what they would do is they would scream as if they had been grabbed loudly. And I think, good for you. Good for you. Good for you. Julesy, it must be awkward reaching for change in the old coin purse. Yes, and that is, of course, there was a drawer of cod pieces found some years ago with what looked like a space in which you could, in fact, use them to store small items. Lol, I didn't mean it like that. Chill out. Behave. Coins, maybe some jewels. So, in fact, they may have been used as a sort of purse, which is interesting. Jules also says that this color combo is divine. I think it's really interesting. If anybody is going to be in Paris during this and gets a chance to see it, let us know what you think. So, friends, it's warm in this kitchen. That is what I have for you today. Thank you so very much for spending this time with me. If you're watching live, thank you. It's nearly 2.5 hours, 2 hours 22, about the time we normally go for. And if you're watching on the playback, thank you for that as well. Thank you for chatting with me. Thank you for your insightful comments, your funny comments. Thank you for laughing along with me. Thank you for getting angry along with me. As always, it really does mean ever so much. Sven says, my 27th birthday is May the 4th. I'll be a year older next time. Well, happy birthday for next time, but before next time. Yes, happy birthday. And I hope you will have 27 will be a good one for you. Jamie asks, could they possibly store their jewels in their codpiece? You say, like what family? I often question that, actually. I don't know where the origin of the expression comes from. Gary says, I remember a young guy who only wears historical garb had a lady reach into the front of his trousers thinking it was a pocket. I mean, why are we going into people's pockets regardless, but much less their fly? Like, what are we doing? Get your hands away from people's junk. Wild. And Pislani, happy 83rd birthday to your mum. Wowee. Wow. Bama Diana said, what were the original cod pieces? The original cod pieces were a stuffed phallic looking item that would lace onto the front of your breeches, and they were a piece to cover your cod. So, but they act as a fly. So it's because essentially you are, particularly when you go past the gowns phase of dressing, when you're in sort of short hose or breeches or whatever else, you need something to be able, because your top will frequently be laced to your bottoms. And if you want to have a quick wee, you need to be able, it's really useful to have a fly. And this is how they have the fly. So a cod piece is just laced on at the front of the trousers. You can unlace it, take your dingle dangle out and have a wee wee. If you have to have a more elaborate number 2, then you need to unlace everything. It's one of the reasons why monarchs have a groom of the stool. Rarely are they wiping bottoms. I don't think that happens for Henry VIII until he's much more incapacitated. You don't need your bottom wiped, but you do need somebody to dress and undress you, because you are laced all of the way around with points. You're pointed in. So if you want to get your kecks down, you need to have someone to unlace you and then also relace you in. I've also, oh, and my husband also says to everybody, happy Star Wars Day on May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. There we go. I think I missed a question. Perhaps I missed a question. Right. I'm going to go get ready for bed, friends. And it's late for me here. It's almost 11 o'clock at night. So I hope you all have a wonderful Monday, or for some of you, of course, Tuesday already, depending on what time zone you're in. Either way, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and a lovely rest of your April. And I will be in the premiere chat on Friday so that we can have a discussion there. And I will also look forward to the same the week after, and as well the live stream at the end of next month, so we can chat about other stuff then too. Do please send your news items in, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. But for now, I'm going to head off. Please do make sure that you hit all the things: the like, subscribe, the bell, hit all, hype it, share it, comment it, all of those things. So bop it, twist it, bop it. I'm going to go now. Thank you so much, and take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.